I was perched silently at the table beside my 7-year-old grandson during my son's second marriage ceremony. Out of nowhere, the child clutched my hand with a firm grip and murmured, "Nana, let's get out of here immediately." I inquired, "What's the matter?" He shivered and answered, "Nana, have you checked beneath the table?" I gradually directed my eyes downward and went rigid. Grasping my grandson's hand, we rose quietly and departed. I'm grateful you've tuned in. If you're viewing this clip, hit like, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments where you're hearing my tale of retribution from. I'd love to see its reach. I found myself in the heart of the wedding venue, a grand ballroom illuminated by flickering candles, seated right by my cherished grandson, the young lad I adore above all else. This day marked my son Alex's union with his new bride, Ava. My sweet little Leo was occupied sliding his crimson toy vehicle to and fro over the spotless white linen. His bright gaze appeared lost in his private universe, oblivious to the grown-ups' chatter surrounding us. Gazing at him melted my heart. I tenderly adjusted the small bow tie around his collar, a motion as delicate as if I were cherishing the recollection of his mother, Maria, whose warm grins I recall vividly even now. The gentle strains of the jazz ensemble wafted through the air, mingling with the low hum of dialogues and the tinkling of crystal glasses. The hall boasted opulent adornments, featuring clusters of flawless white roses on each surface, and the glow from candles dancing on polished silverware. I scanned the room for Alex. He was circulating among the tables, raising glasses in appreciation to the attendees, his beaming expression attempting to conceal the void I knew lingered in his soul since Maria's passing. Farther off, Ava, my son's fresh spouse, looked radiant in her sequined gown, snapping pictures with her companions. Her grin was impeccable, unmarred by doubt, as though she owned the universe. Observing her stirred an odd flutter in my torso, an uneasy vibe, yet I dismissed it, chalking it up to my own heightened emotions. Servers glided smoothly amid the seating, pouring additional wine, removing used dishes, and folding fresh linens. An older pair at our spot addressed me with a warm expression. "Leo's maturing so swiftly. What's his age these days, Betty?" I returned a gentle smile and responded quietly, "He just hit 7. Moments pass in a blur." Then I focused on slicing a modest slice of cake for Leo. The child glanced upward, his eyes sparkling with thanks, though he soon dropped his focus back down and resumed maneuvering his plaything, as if that miniature world offered his soul sanctuary. Abruptly, Leo halted. His tiny palms ceased moving the vehicle, and his wide eyes fixed on me with an unusual gravity. I felt a jolt of unease. An ominous chill coursed through me. He seized my hand with force. His small digits felt frozen. In a hushed, pressing tone, he breathed, "Nana, we need to go now." His words quivered, as if suppressing an inexplicable terror. My pulse quickened. I bent toward him, resting a palm on his back. "What's troubling you, sweetheart? Explain it to me." Leo quaked, sealing his mouth tight. Then, in a barely audible whisper that required me to tilt nearer, he said, "Nana, you haven't peeked under the table, right?" His phrase struck like an icy blade piercing my core. A profound dread swelled within, constricting my breath. I fought to remain composed, running my fingers through his locks, but his frantic stare, from a mere 7-year-old, made denial impossible. "All right, darling. Let Nana check," I assured, forcing steadiness into my tone to ease him, despite my own thumping heartbeat. With caution, I raised the corner of the pristine cloth and peered into the shadowy void below, amid the chair legs and Leo's dangling sneakers. And there it was, a compact note creased into quarters positioned directly by Leo's seat. It was tiny, nearly vanishing in the gloom, yet its existence sent a shiver through my veins. Leo pressed close to me, his grip on my limb desperate for comfort. I sensed his rapid breaths. Each quiver signaled profound distress. I knelt fully and with unsteady fingers retrieved the slip. The revelry continued around us. laughter and cheers. But in that moment, my reality narrowed to just us two and that cursed scrap I held. I opened it. The subdued candlelight sufficed to decipher the hasty scrawl. Table 8, add shrimp to the child's plate. A handful of terms, yet they landed like a brutal blow to my spirit. My blood seemed to crystallize, and breath caught in my throat. Leo suffers a grave shrimp allergy, a fact our entire family grasps fully. Even a trace could threaten his existence. Who could have penned such words? Who could possess such heartlessness? All on my boy's wedding day. I gripped Leo's hand, sensing his tiny fingers quivering against my palm. I rose suddenly, ignoring the startled glances from those nearby. The older pair beside us halted their chat and regarded me with worry. I pulled Leo into a fierce embrace, as though releasing him might make him disappear. The sounds of joy and melody persisted, yet for me, a thick, oppressive quiet had descended. Recollections from happier eras surged through my thoughts, pulling me away from that sparkling reception hall and into the times when our household felt complete. I'd once believed my son's place would echo with endless cheer, yet existence, like an abrupt blast of air, snuffed out that joy, branding me with wounds that time couldn't mend. Maria, my initial daughter-in-law, lingers in my memory as vividly as the early light piercing the curtains at sunrise. Her grin was gentle and inviting. She had a way of embracing me that felt like kin. Maria never snapped or caused me distress. She belonged to that rare sort whose mere presence brought serenity. Those blustery evenings in Phoenix's outskirts still come to mind, when I'd visit the modest home of Alex and Maria. Leo's giggles, fresh on his feet, rang out in the yard as he pursued a vibrant, bouncy ball. Maria lingered on the veranda, cradling a harvest of ripe produce, beaming at her child. "Betty, give my chili a taste, Mom. Let me know your thoughts," she'd urge me often, her tone brimming with satisfaction as she set the steaming dish before me. I'd linger there, savoring bites and chatting about everyday matters while Leo toddled across the rug, clutching a weathered toy vehicle. But the recollection that shines brightest and aches deepest is the evening Leo fell gravely ill. His temperature soared, his small frame radiated heat, and his lids hardly lifted, too weak for tears. Maria cradled him as silent sobs traced her face. "Betty, Mom, I'm terrified," she murmured, her words shaky. I settled close, alternating cool compresses on his brow to ease her fears. "It's all right, dear. He's tough. He'll pull through." Yet deep down, anxiety pressed on me like lead. I kept vigil with Maria through the night until morning's glow arrived and the fever eased, letting Leo drift off in her hold. Maria faced me, eyes puffy but curving slightly. "Thanks, Mom. I couldn't have managed without you then." I simply clasped her hand firmly, conveying without words that I'd stand by her and Leo always. I figured this close-knit unit would thrive eternally, like an unending melody. But one disastrous afternoon, it all unraveled. The telephone buzzed as I scrubbed plates in the sink. A detached officer's tone filled the receiver. "Mrs. Williams, we're sorry to report an incident." The rest blurred. My grip faltered, sending a dish crashing and splintering on the tiles. Maria had vanished in a flash, a runaway truck slamming her vehicle on the interstate beyond town. I froze, watching reality fracture around me. Her service unfolded amid relentless downpour, the heavens weeping ceaselessly. Leo, merely 4 at the time, nestled in my grasp, bewildered, scanning faces with wide, pure eyes, grasping nothing. "Nana, where's Mommy?" piped his small voice. I enveloped him close, choking back my grief, and breathed, "She's in a lovely spot now, sweetheart." But I shattered within. Alex, my child, crumpled near the casket, heaving silently, speechless. I saw his effort to hold steady, but his stare was vacant, as if Maria had claimed a piece of him. Following that loss, Alex transformed utterly. He immersed in his job, departing at dawn and slipping back after Leo's bedtime. I recognized his escape, chasing busyness to patch the gaping hole in his chest. But Leo, my darling, bore the heaviest burden. He grew quieter. His expressions turned melancholic, like he awaited some wonder to restore his mom. I stepped in as his anchor. I'd drive him to classes each dawn and perch by his side each dusk to soothe him. "Nana, share a tale about Mommy," he'd plead frequently. I'd recount them hoarsely, describing how Maria lulled him with songs, slicing his fruits into bits for his beloved treat. Every narrative aimed to etch her essence in Leo's thoughts and my soul. Lucy, my chosen daughter, wove herself into those challenging periods too. Her kind spirit and with calloused hands, she frequently visited our home, carrying handmade cookies or coloring books for the kids. Lucy adored Leo like her very own sibling. She'd scoop him up in her arms, guide him through his first words on the page, or spend endless afternoons at the kitchen table, patiently coaxing his awkward sketches to life. "See here, Leo, your drawing of the house looks even lovelier than the one I made," she'd remark, her laughter ringing out like a pure chime. Yet there were moments when I'd spot Lucy gazing at Alex as he slipped quietly through the door after a grueling workday. It was a profound stare, holding layers beyond mere brotherly warmth. I noticed it clearly but chose to stay silent. Perhaps I feared that voicing it might shatter the delicate balance holding our fractured family together. Gradually, Alex's home lost its echoes of joy. Still, Lucy and Leo kept the familial spark alive, even if only on a weekly basis. I poured all my efforts into fanning that glow. Deep inside, though, I recognized that Alex and I both carried scars from wounds that time hadn't mended. Whenever I watched Leo drift off to sleep, Maria's gentle traits shone on his innocent features, twisting my heart anew with sorrow. The recollection of that particular afternoon lingers vividly in my thoughts, as fresh as yesterday. I sat in my modest sitting room, the sparrows' cheerful chirps from the garden, stirring a swirl of conflicting emotions within me. It marked the first occasion my son Alex brought Ava over to meet the family. I made a conscious effort to embrace the moment. I aimed to view this young lady through the lens of a parent, hoping her child rediscovers joy amid a lingering grief. But beneath it all, an unsettling chill persisted, like a draft that left me chilled to the bone. That day, Alex showed up later than expected. I was busy in the kitchen assembling Leo's beloved tacos when the front door creaked open. Alex stepped inside, his face radiating an unfamiliar brightness. His eyes sparkled with the same fire from his younger days, back when he'd speak of Maria with uncontainable fervor. "Mom," he uttered, his voice thick with emotion as he leaned against the frame. "I'd like you to meet someone important." I paused my preparations and met his gaze, a flicker of anxiety rising. "Someone special?" I inquired, striving for steadiness in my tone. Alex's grin returned, a rare sight after so many years. "Absolutely, I know you'll warm to her right away," he assured me confidently. I gave a small nod, drying my hands on my apron to mask the budding concern. Since Maria's passing, I doubted anyone could ease the emptiness she left, not just for Alex, but for Leo and myself too. That evening, Ava made her entrance. She glided into our home wearing a graceful light blue gown, her hair cascading in soft waves around her features, and her lips touched with a subtle crimson hue, forming a welcoming curve. That smile, to be fair, held undeniable allure, almost as if practiced for maximum appeal. "What a delight to finally meet you, Mrs. Williams," she greeted in a melodic tone, dipping her head graciously. I mirrored her expression, ushered her inside, and poured a steaming mug of fragrant coffee. "Your home feels so inviting," Ava observed, her gaze sweeping over the wall adorned with family snapshots, including one of Maria cradling a newborn Leo. I acknowledged the compliment with a murmur of thanks, yet her attention dwelled on that image longer than felt comfortable, leaving me vaguely disquieted. The meal unfolded in an ambiance I worked hard to keep warm and relaxed. I'd spent the afternoon crafting the spread: soft corn tortillas folded around savory taco fillings, enchiladas smothered in rich red sauce, and a vibrant mango salad, Leo's absolute go-to. Alex positioned himself beside Ava, his focus fixed on her throughout. His contentment shone through every motion. "Mom, Ava's in marketing at the firm, exceptional at her role," he boasted, tone brimming with admiration. Ava beamed back. With a poised yet intentional gesture, she plated an enchilada for me. "Mrs. Williams, this is outstanding. I'd love for you to share the recipe," she added, offering a cordial glance. I replied with a courteous smile, though a quiet unease lingered. Something in her phrasing, her light chuckles, evoked the sense of a meticulously directed performance. Leo, my young grandson, occupied the table's end spot, unusually subdued. The boy who typically chattered endlessly about his day merely poked at his plate, eyes downcast. He seemed to deliberately avert them from Ava, as though seeking refuge in solitude. Ava bent forward, retrieving a chocolate treat from her bag and setting it before him with an effervescent grin. "Here you go. This one's a treat, Leo," she cooed, her words dripping with syrupy charm, as if aiming to charm him instantly. But Leo stayed motionless, fingers clenched around his utensils before simply turning away, ignoring the candy entirely. A glimpse of apprehension crossed his face, squeezing my chest like a vice. Alex's brow furrowed, poised to reprimand. "Leo, what's gotten into you? Ava's just offering some sweets." I stepped in swiftly. "It's fine. He must be worn out. Let it go, dear." Alex let out a quiet sigh but kept quiet, pivoting to pour Ava another glass of wine in an effort to ease the tension. My adopted daughter, Lucy, joined us for the meal, too. She occupied the seat opposite mine, picking at her food without a word, though I caught the shadow crossing her eyes as Ava slipped her hand into Alex's beneath the tablecloth. Lucy's always had a tender heart, and it's clear she adores Alex like family, yet I sometimes question if her affection runs even stronger. As Ava clasped Alex's hand, Lucy's paused mid-air above her drink, her knuckles whitening slightly. She stayed silent, dipping her chin and resuming her meal. Yet that quiet carried more weight than any outburst. I longed to question her, to grasp the source of her sorrow, but the moment didn't feel suitable. Once the meal wrapped up, Ava pushed to handle the cleanup despite my repeated protests. "Mrs. Williams, please take it easy," she urged, brimming with energy. I gave in with some hesitation and observed as she headed to the kitchen, pushed up her sleeves, and whistled a lively melody amid the scrubbing. I had to concede she handled it flawlessly, the plate stacked perfectly, the basin gleaming spotless. Briefly, I reflected, she strikes me as genuinely thoughtful. However, stepping into the lounge afterward, I spotted Leo perched there, scribbling with a crayon gripped tightly in his small fist. Ava drew near and settled beside him, offering compliments. "You're quite the artist, Leo. What's this one? Show me." But Leo dropped the crayon at once and pulled away, his face etched with suspicion, like she posed some danger. Ava shot me a look and plastered on a grin to mask the discomfort. "Such a timid little guy," she remarked in her usual honeyed tone. Still, I detected an odd flicker in her gaze. Alex, on the other hand, appeared oblivious to the undercurrents. He focused on refilling glasses, sharing amusing tales from the office, and bursting into hearty chuckles whenever Ava cracked a quip. The evening closed with my son beaming contentedly, escorting Ava to the entrance, his stare locked on her as though the rest of us had vanished. I lingered, observing their departure, a peculiar unease settling in my chest, like something was slightly off-kilter. Weeks slipped by, and Ava wove herself into our daily routine. One sunny weekend morning in California, sunlight pouring into the sitting room via the panes, I was working on a knitted wrap when Ava bounced in, grinning widely. "Mrs. Williams, mind if I bring Leo to the playground today?" she inquired, her tone bubbling with zeal. I glanced at Leo, sprawled on the rug with his building blocks, his features blank. "Absolutely, he'll enjoy that," I answered, mustering a grin despite the faint reservations stirring within. With Alex off at his job, I figured some outdoor time might benefit the boy. Ava grasped Leo's hand and guided him out, while I tracked their exit with an odd weight pressing on me. Upon their return, Ava entered beaming victoriously. He had a blast. Couldn't get enough of the slide, and he even begged for seconds on the ice cream, she shared animatedly. Yet eyeing Leo, I noticed smudges of caked soil on his blue shirt, the one I'd pressed fresh that day. He clutched his toy vehicle mutely, offering no details on the adventure. "Enjoy yourself out there, sweetheart," I queried, kneeling to run my fingers through his locks. He gave a minimal nod, averting his eyes. I itched to probe further, to uncover his reticence, but Ava chimed in with her perpetual gentleness. "I mentioned it already, Mrs. Williams." He was thrilled. I acknowledged her, though a sliver of suspicion started piecing itself together in my mind. During another instance, with Alex away at the office, Ava arrived without warning. I was in the kitchen fixing up some chili for midday when I overheard her chatting with Leo in the den. Her words started gentle but abruptly sharpened. "Hold still, Leo, no messing around. You're growing up, but you behave like a toddler." I froze, knife hovering over the half-cut onion, a shiver coursing through me. Emerging from the kitchen, I found Ava instantly softening her voice, all warmth as if seamless. "Leo's such a smart cookie. Check out this impressive stack he's made," she gushed, gesturing at the boy's block tower with a beaming expression. But Leo clamped his mouth shut and eyed me pleadingly, seeking rescue. I forced a grin and replied, "Indeed, he's got real talent." Though, inwardly, the discomfort was swelling, akin to a tiny barb pricking at my core. I attempted to soothe my nerves. After all, she's probably inexperienced with kids. Everyone stumbles initially. Leo's 7th birthday stands out as an indelible recollection. Lucy, my adopted girl, devoted the morning to whipping up a chocolate treat, Leo's top pick. As she brought it in and set it down aglow with candles, Leo let out a whoop of delight. For the first time in ages, his face brightened. "Aunt Lucy, this is my all-time favorite," he cried, dashing over to embrace. She beamed at him, running her fingers through his locks, and whispered softly, "I prepared this just for you, darling. Have plenty." I observed the pair with a surge of affection, sensing that the family's warmth had reignited. Ava lingered nearby, too, yet her applause felt half-hearted as she hovered in the shadows with a tired grin. Her sole gesture toward Leo amounted to a casual shoulder tap and a mumbled, "Happy birthday, kid." I noticed Leo recoil slightly, dodging her eyes, and a pang twisted in my chest once more. I longed to speak up, but held back, reminding myself to avoid meddling too deeply. On another occasion, Alex brought Ava and Leo along to the supermarket. I remained at the house, though upon their arrival, Ava's voice rose in sharp frustration. Leo had knocked over an entire sack of sweets at the register, forcing me to cover the cost. Such an awkward child. Alex's brow furrowed as he pivoted to reprimand his boy. "Leo, you're growing up. Start being more responsible." I watched Leo bow his head, fingers twisting together, his gaze pleading toward me for support. I hurried over, resting a palm on his arm. "It's fine, sweetheart, merely some treats." Yet inwardly, I puzzled over Ava's quick flares of temper toward a kid. Why wasn't she as kind as Maria once was? One day, as I arrived to collect Leo from school, his instructor pulled me aside and murmured worriedly, "Mrs. Williams, Leo's been unusually quiet these days and appears quite reserved. Anything going on at home?" I stiffened but brushed it off lightly. "Probably just adjusting to the shifts, Mrs. Davis. No need to fret." However, en route back, Leo clutched at my shirt and uttered in a shaky whisper, "Grandma, I don't want to return home with Miss Ava." I halted, dropping to my knees to meet his innocent stare, my emotions tightening like a vice. "What makes you say that, sweetie? Miss Ava cares for you," I replied. But the words rang false even as they left my lips. Leo shook his head resolutely, eyes unwavering. "No, Grandma, she doesn't." I smoothed his hair to soothe him, though deep down I recognized the child's honesty. Lucy, standing close by, had caught the exchange. She averted her face quietly, but I spotted her shoulders quake faintly as if suppressing a heavy breath. All those scattered clues, those subtle indicators, I'd spotted them but opted to overlook. And then came the wedding day for my boy. That evening, Florida's golden rays poured through the expansive panes, flooding the venue with a glowing warmth, like nature itself joining the festivities for his joyous milestone. I sat at table 8 beside my grandson Leo and Lucy, the daughter I'd taken in. Leo fiddled with his crimson toy vehicle, murmuring gentle, vroom, vroom sounds. Gazing at him swelled my heart with fondness. Lucy, clad in a plain taupe gown, perched across from me, occasionally bending to murmur something to Leo with a grin as warm as dawn light. "Try another bite of bread, little one," she urged, tearing off a morsel for him. The scene brought a soft ease to my spirit. Despite the hardships our kin had endured, Lucy and Leo's company always kindled a comforting glow within me. My son Alex, sharp in his sleek midnight blue attire, circulated among the tables, raising glasses with kin. Joy lit his features. His bright grin appeared intent on wiping away the grim times after Maria's passing. I regarded him with a blend of admiration and sorrow. I hoped he discovered fresh joy that Ava, in her sparkling gown adorned with beads, would build him a stable haven. But whenever our eyes locked on Ava, who chortled boisterously for the photographers while clutching her wine, a subtle sting pierced my core. Her expression struck me as overly polished, akin to a deliberate facade. The jazz ensemble's mellow tunes wove through the guests' animated chatter. Servers glided about unobtrusively, offering starters, crisp wafers, a fragrant cheese spread, and trays of chilled prawns artfully arranged. I realized Leo merely grabbed a single wafer before nudging the prawn dish aside with care. My forehead creased as I leaned in quietly. "Not to your taste, honey." He shook his head, glancing elsewhere as though concealing a secret. I itched to probe further, but a family member cut in with upbeat cheer. "Leo's minding his manners well, Betty. He's shot up so much." I forced a smile. "He's turning into a clever young fellow." Still, anxiety gnawed at me. Leo had never shunned eats so oddly before. Far off, Ava's attention drifted our way. Her mouth's curves seemed to stiffen briefly, imperceptibly, before she swung back to clink glasses with someone else. I pushed aside my discomfort, chiding myself for imagining things. But then the moment shifted abruptly. Leo, engrossed with his plaything, shoved the car with excess force, sending it tumbling to the ground. The child bent swiftly to retrieve it, but I watched him go rigid, his gaze locked wide on whatever lurked beneath the table. As I bent closer to question what had spooked him, Leo fished out a tiny folded note from his pocket with shaky fingers and a ghostly pallor. He gripped my hand instantly and hissed in desperation, "Grandma, we need to leave. Right this instant." My pulse raced wildly, threatening to burst free from my ribs. "What's going on, sweetheart?" I probed, forcing steadiness into my tone. Yet Leo's terrified stare shattered any pretense of calm. Shivering, he uttered those icy words again that sent chills racing down my spine. "You haven't peeked under the table, have you?" His phrase hit like a freezing blade, locking me in place. I dropped to my knees, yanked up the crisp tablecloth, and peered into the shadowy void below. There lay the scrap of paper by his seat, an innocent-looking thing laced with dread. With unsteady grasp, I snatched it up, the room narrowing to just Leo, myself, and that cursed scrap. I smoothed it open. The flickering candle glow revealed the scrawled message. "Table. Add shrimp to the child serving." Mere scraps of ink, yet they jolted me like a live wire, searing every nerve. Without thinking, I balled it in my fist. The surrounding tunes, the chuckles, the whole scene plunged into a void I couldn't claw out of. Ava, radiant in her bridal gown, kept giggling from across the hall, clinking glasses with a visitor as though bliss enveloped her utterly. Alex snapped pics alongside his colleagues, his beaming grin proclaiming this pinnacle of joy. But to me, the entire venue rang hollow, a sham veil over the horrifying reality I'd unearthed. I clutched the note harder, its edges biting into my palm. Leo, the boy I cherished beyond my soul, had nearly fallen prey to a vicious scheme on his dad's big day. I pivoted toward Lucy, my cherished stepdaughter, seated beside him. Alarm flickered in her eyes at my face. "Watch over Leo for me," I urged, battling to sound composed, though my quaver betrayed me. She dipped her head, drawing him near and enveloping him in a fierce embrace, like an unbreakable barrier. "Where are you headed?" she murmured, laced with dread. I merely shook my head, silent, for my next move eluded me. I hurried into the corridor, feet dragging like they bore iron weights, though my thumping heart drove me onward. By the bar, a cluster of servers bantered idly. Their mirth clashed sharply with the turmoil churning within. I spotted David, the fellow who delivered our meals repeatedly. He sported a warm demeanor and easy grin, but none of that mattered now. I marched right to him, thrust the note forward, and demanded sharply, "Who gave you this?" David glanced at it, and his features twisted in shock. His relaxed smirk morphed into sheer fright. "Oh heavens, that's mine," he stuttered, fingers twitching as if to yank it away. A lady handed it over, and I lost it while juggling the tray. His confession pierced the fog like a beacon, yet it fueled my frenzy further. Who was she? I pressed, voice rising to a near yell, poise unraveling. David recoiled, bewildered. "No clue on her name, miss. She said pass it to the cook. It never mentioned the sender." Fury ignited within like an inferno. "Exactly why that's unforgivable," I snapped, stepping nearer, tone quaking with fury and terror. "Understand this. My grandson's deathly allergic to shrimp. One bite could end him." David's complexion drained to ashen, eyes bulging in dismay, head whipping side to side. "Miss, I swear I was clueless. I merely obeyed the instructions, nothing more." His words cracked, as if he tumbled into the same horror alongside me. The nearby staff started murmuring, exchanging uneasy glances. I crushed the note tighter, its heat scorching my flesh. I ached to howl, to shatter it all, but restraint held me back. Leo needed safeguarding, and rashness wouldn't serve. From the hall, the announcer's upbeat call rang out, urging folks to brace for the entree. It mocked me cruelly, ticking down the seconds. If I faltered, peril could snare Leo fatally. I drew in a steadying breath, quelling my shakes. Silence wasn't an option. Inaction would haunt me forever. Back in the hall I strode, note gripped as damning evidence of malice afoot. The space still shimmered under candle flames, jazz rhythms blending with guest merriment. Servers glided quietly with the entrees, the scent of roasted dishes wafting through the air. The aroma of roasted beef and rich sauce hung thick in the atmosphere, yet to me, it all seemed like a cruel illusion. I glanced at Leo, curled up beside Lucy, his wide, frightened eyes locked on mine as though I was his sole shelter amid the chaos. I grasped Leo's tiny hand, sensing his shaky digits against my skin. Then, propelled by some unseen power, I rose suddenly, my words cutting sharply through the lively tunes and chatter. "Hold on a second before we start the meal. I need to clear something up." The entire hall went quiet, as if the clock had frozen. Every gaze turned to table 8, where I stood holding Leo's hand, with Lucy seated nearby, a flicker of resolve in her stare. The tinkling of cutlery halted, the low hum of voices faded, and all I could hear was my heartbeat thundering in my ears. I raised the note. The scrawled message on it stood as a blatant charge. "Who penned this request to include shrimp in the meal for the kid at table 8? I demanded, my tone quivering with fury yet steady and piercing. Hushed murmurs rippled out like gentle ripples across still water. A few attendees exchanged puzzled glances, their faces etched with intrigue and bewilderment. I sensed Leo's stare boring into me, as if pleading for me to shield him. Alex dashed over from another spot, his grin vanishing into worry upon catching my look. "Mom, what's happening?" he queried, utterly perplexed. I held off on replying right away. Instead, I placed the note on the surface and slid it his way. "See for yourself," I snapped, my words rough despite the turmoil churning within. Alex snatched it up. His gaze flew over the text, and I watched his complexion drain of color while his fingers quivered faintly. "What is this about?" he stammered, dazed, shifting his eyes from me to Leo in a desperate hunt for sense. Ava, radiant in her bridal gown, drew near with a furrowed brow and a contrived look of shock. "What's going on here? Some awful prank?" she murmured gently, though I caught a glimmer of alarm in her gaze. I met her stare head-on, my chest tight with rage and dread. "My grandson has a shrimp allergy," I declared, my voice shaking from outrage. "This isn't funny, it's attempted harm." My statement crashed down like a bolt from the sky, wrapping the venue in utter stillness. A few mouths gaped in disbelief, while others started to mutter, their attention bouncing between me and Ava. Ava forced a chuckle, a veneer to hold her poise. "Pardon me, Mrs. Williams, but there's no signature on it. Are you really buying a tale cooked up by a kid who stumbled on it?" she retorted with sarcasm, aiming to paint me as a frantic elder. Doubt stirred among the crowd. "Perhaps it's just a mix-up. Who'd pull that at a celebration like this?" My blood surged hot. Ava's nerve nearly robbed me of speech. I ached to yell, to rip away that gown and expose the reality, but I forced composure for Leo's sake, for my kin. Abruptly, Lucy rose, clutching Leo close, her gaze narrowed and aimed at Ava. "Stop it, Ava." Her tone was icy, yet laced with agony, as if she'd reached her breaking point. Lucy advanced and delivered a sharp slap, the crack reverberating across the space. The crisp impact shattered the hush and the pretense. All present stood stunned, me included. Ava touched her face, eyes bulging in disbelief, then pivoted to Alex with fake tears. "Look, she's consumed by envy, lashing out at me. Why me?" Lucy held her ground, knuckles white and words fractured by wrath. "The real villain here is you. You tried to hurt a blameless boy on your wedding day." Her accusation sliced the thick tension like a blade. Suspicion now targeted Ava, and I watched her stiffen, her phony grin dissolving. Alex remained rooted, his eyes darting from me to Lucy and Ava, caught in a rift. "Lucy, ease up," he urged shakily, though doubt clouded his certainty. The guests' whispers swelled like a rising wave, drawing focus to me, to Ava, and to little Leo, quaking in Lucy's embrace. Ava fought to keep her composed facade, but her fingers betrayed her with tremors as she spoke. "This is pure fabrication. Someone must have planted it to sabotage our big day." Her pitch was biting, yet panic flickered in her eyes, her flawless front beginning to fracture. I could tolerate her boldness no longer. The fury within erupted, burning through my restraint like wildfire. I slammed my palm on the table, rattling the stemware. "No more," I bellowed, my cry so frigid it drowned even the band's smooth jazz. "David, over here." The server, David, edged in from the shadows, his features ashen with dread. His glances flickered nervously like a man squeezed between honesty and the brewing tempest. I presented the note to him, my tone steady despite the quiver in my voice. "Verify it. Is this the one you got?" David bobbed his head vigorously, his words stumbling out. "Yes, ma'am, that's it." A lady at the nearby table handed it over, and I let it slip while balancing the serving tray. He dropped his eyes, dodging my stare. Fury surged through me, yet I compelled myself to remain composed, aware that every eye in the grand hall was fixed on us. Ava rushed in with a piercing, nearly frantic interruption. "You've got it wrong. I have no idea about any of that." But before she could finish, a frail, anguished whisper cut through from the back. Gloria, Ava's little sister, broke down sobbing and rose from her seat. "It wasn't my sister Ava who passed me that note," the girl declared, shaking as rivulets streamed down her face. "She told me to hand it to the server. I promise I had no clue what it contained." A ripple of stunned whispers swept the room. My heavens, I refused to accept this. How could that be? I turned to Gloria and compassion welled up in me. She was just shy of 18. Her eyes glistened with redness and bewilderment as though she were caught in the same horrifying web. Ava spun around sharply and shouted at her sibling, her features contorted in fury. "Be quiet, Gloria. How could you invent stories to sabotage your flesh and blood?" Her tone sliced like a blade, though I noticed her mouth quivering, as if battling to conceal the reality. Gloria retreated, quaking entirely, and choked out amid her cries, "I'm telling the truth, sis. I only followed your instructions." Her admission pierced Ava's deception like a spike, plunging the whole venue into stunned silence. An elderly family member nearby shook his head, his throat tight with emotion. How can someone overlook an innocent kid like that? Amid the turmoil, Lucy advanced, clutching Leo close, and declared in a frosty tone, "If you insist on denying it, we can review the hall's surveillance footage. It'll all come to light right away." Her statement hit like a rock in still water, stirring ripples of dread. Ava's complexion drained to gray, her mouth clenched, and her eyes darted wildly for an out. But no way out remained. She uttered not a sound, and that quiet spoke louder than any admission to me. Alex stood rigid, his fingers shaking on Leo's arm, staring in dismay at the bride he'd moments ago named his wife, Ava. His words cracked as he grasped at the slim chance of error, yet his glance, shifting from the note to Leo, revealed everything. I watched his spirit shatter, mirroring the agony I'd endured upon uncovering the scheme. An uncle rose and shook his head in revulsion. Unthinkable. Such malice on a joyous occasion. His speech wavered, barely containing his outrage. Following Lucy's bold suggestion on the cameras, a heavy hush enveloped the hall. Ava, whom I'd once strived to welcome into our fold, remained there, ghostly pale with sealed lips, grasping for a final alibi. Yet the facts lay bare, and she had no refuge. Alex, my boy, approached her gradually, his expression strained and gaze bloodshot, and demanded, "Ava, be honest. Is it real?" His utterance shook as if pleading for a spark of innocence in the mess, but I sensed he already grasped the harsh reality inside. Ava recoiled a pace, attempting a warped grin, though her stare exposed sheer terror. "You doubt me," she uttered in a fractured whisper, desperate to hold on to Alex's faith. "This is their scheme. I had no part." But her plea rang hollow, like a breeze fading against an oncoming gale. I regarded her, weighed down by resentment and sorrow. The lady I'd believed would bless my son's life now faced me as an unknown threat, one I'd overlooked entirely. Lucy, the daughter I'd taken in, placed a steadying palm on Alex's back and stated, reining in her fury with effort, "This woman nearly ended Leo's life." Her remark cut deep and true. Ava screamed in anguish, "Enough! You're nothing but a spiteful outsider." But Lucy held her ground, body quivering with anger, yet unyielding as a barrier for Leo. How bold to label me envious. Lucy shot back coolly, "Face this boy and swear you meant him no harm." Leo gripped my fingers, his small grasp tightening as if dreading the surrounding horror. The attendees started to rise. The merry vibe had shattered beyond repair. A kin of ours, Mr. Johnson, slammed his fist on the table in ire. "What a scandal! We must address this." Echoes of agreement swelled like tides, burying Ava under waves of scornful glares. Alex, torn between reality and affection, bellowed, his cry raw with hurt and wrath. Leo's my child. You attempted to end my child's life on our wedding day." His accusation struck Ava squarely, and I witnessed her crumble into sobs. Yet those drops, I understood, stemmed not from regret, but from exposure. I placed the document on the table and stated resolutely, "Whoever attempts to hurt my grandson will forever be barred from this family." My statement echoed with unwavering certainty, much like a final judgment. Ava glanced up, her expression blazing with anger, yet I detected surrender in her eyes. She had been defeated not just by me, but by reality itself. The hotel guard stepped forward, courteously yet decisively requesting that Ava exit the venue. "Ma'am, if you'd please accompany us," one intoned coolly. Ava retreated, scanning for support but found none. Several attendees shook their heads in dismay, setting down their partially filled drinks and exhaling in disappointment. "Incredible," murmured one. "How could anyone be that heartless?" Another uttered, appalled. Alex remained rooted in place, clutching his head as though bracing against the crumbling of his reality. Then, as if his legs could no longer bear him, he gradually dropped to his knees before Leo, his words trembling. "Son, pardon me. I'm so sorry, my child, for failing to shield you." I watched tears streak his face, and my own heart shattered. Supporting Alex to his feet, I gripped his arms firmly and assured him in a solemn, steady tone. Fortunately, we intervened before it was too late. This sham of joy must conclude right here, right now. I observed Ava as she was led away amid scornful stares, and deep down, I understood she had never truly belonged to us, nor would she ever. In the ensuing days after that disastrous ceremony, our household swirled in a quiet storm of lingering hurts and unresolved doubts. It felt like emerging from a terrifying dream where I'd nearly forfeited Leo, the grandson I cherish beyond everything. Tales of the botched nuptials circulated widely, from neighborhood chats to talks among far-off kin. The landline rang incessantly. Certain callers faulted Alex for his unquestioning faith in Ava. Others pitied Leo, the blameless youngster nearly ensnared in a malicious scheme. Yet each ring served as a stark echo of our ordeal for me. Post-incident, Alex retreated into himself. He was no longer the vibrant figure in his dark suit from the event. Rather, he ferried Leo to and from school each day in hushed routine, his eyes shadowed by sorrow and self-reproach. The word Ava became taboo, unspoken like a forbidden incantation within our walls. I regarded Alex with aching empathy, recognizing he required space to mend, to rediscover his path after the betrayal by the one he adored. I held no grudge against him, for I know affection's power to cloud judgment. Still, I sensed our kin needed to rebuild from the ruins. I persisted in tending to Leo just as I had since Maria's departure. I whipped up his beloved meals, creamy noodles or a velvety custard, aiming to restore his feeling of safety. But the true mender of Leo's spirit, not I, but Lucy, the daughter I'd taken in. Each dawn, she'd meticulously pack his school bag with allergen-free bites, avoiding shrimp or any risks. She'd tuck in a note for the educator detailing his sensitivity, adorned with a cheerful doodle in crayon that delighted him. "Aunt Lucy, your drawings are amazing," Leo would declare upon peeking inside, his face brightening as though reclaiming some lost purity. In the evenings, Lucy escorted Leo to the close-by playground. From afar, I'd observe as she guided him in launching a kite, demonstrating the grip to send it soaring. When he tumbled from the climber once, she dashed over, lifted him gently, dusted him off, and soothed, "All good, sweetheart, I've got you." His pure giggles rang out, a melody I'd feared gone for good, now soothing my soul like a healing salve. I beheld Lucy with boundless thanks, for she served not merely as kin, but as a surrogate parent, bridging the gap Maria had created. One evening, amid Leo's soaring temperature, I witnessed Lucy vigil by his bedside through the night. Perched on a stool, she applied cool compresses to his brow while murmuring tales of a valiant bird navigating a tempest. I lingered in the doorway, observing quietly, and noted Alex's prolonged stare at her. His expression mixed appreciation and regret, as if awakening to something long overlooked. I kept my peace, withdrawing soundlessly to grant them privacy, yet inwardly a spark of optimism flickered, that perhaps our clan's shadowed path held a glimmer ahead. During one uncommon family meal, gathered round the steaming pasta I'd made, Leo abruptly raised his gaze to Lucy with those innocent eyes. "I wish Aunt Lucy could be my mom," he voiced gently but distinctly, like a pondered revelation. The room hushed. Lucy flushed, dropping her gaze and clutching her utensil to mask her fluster. Alex stilled, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. It was as if Leo's words had struck a profound chord deep within Alex's soul. A smile crossed my face. I placed my hand gently on his shoulder and spoke in a tender tone. "Real joy, my boy, doesn't stem from a glamorous bridal gown, but from an honest soul that truly understands how to cherish." Alex gazed at me, then turned to Lucy, and I noticed a faint glimmer of optimism flicker in his eyes. Days turned into weeks, and Ava faded entirely from our world, vanishing like a poisonous gust that had finally blown away. Leo returned to his joyful self, constantly trailing after Lucy with his little red toy car and the picture she'd drawn just for him. I watched him dash around the garden, overwhelmed by a wave of relief, yet tinged with sorrow as I recalled the hardships he'd endured. Eventually, Alex clasped Lucy's hand in his. He abruptly appeared before me in the sitting room and declared, with a voice that quivered yet held steady, "Mom, I realize now how wrong I was. I was oblivious. I endangered Leo. But this time, I'm determined not to release the one who's genuinely stood by our family through it all." Lucy bowed her head, her face blushing, though a brilliant smile lit up her mouth. I nodded, tears streaming quietly down my face. "All I desire, son, is for you and Leo to find true contentment," I replied, my words catching in my throat. That evening, once Leo had drifted off to sleep, I settled by the window, observing the silvery moon casting its glow across the serene avenue. Its gentle radiance served as a gentle nudge that, despite the shadows our family had weathered, brightness invariably pierces through. I murmured to myself, kinship isn't solely bound by blood. At times, it's forged through devotion and bravery. Following that somber ceremony, a fresh era brimming with hope had indeed dawned for us. My eyes drifted to the garden, where the kite Lucy and Leo had launched the previous day still lingered. I realized that while past scars might never completely mend, we'd press forward united, buoyed by affection and resilience. Having navigated these trials, I grasped a vital truth. Life brings irreplaceable losses and heart-wrenching deceptions, yet authentic love remains the beacon that guides us onward. Bonds aren't just woven from lineage, but from deliberate decisions, from the bravery to shield one another against peril and gloom. It's through devotion and genuine care that enduring fulfillment arises, not superficial facades. I urge you all to heed this. Allow your instincts to lead, for even a minor act of awareness might preserve a precious life, and it's compassion that pulls us from endless shadowy hours. The tale you've just encountered has been altered in terms of names and settings to safeguard those involved. We share it not to condemn, but in the wish that it prompts pause and contemplation. How many parents endure quietly within their households? I genuinely ponder, if you stood in my shoes, what path would you take? Would you opt for quiet to preserve harmony, or summon the resolve to confront it all and reclaim your say? I'd value your thoughts, as each narrative can spark illumination for fellow travelers. May blessings abound, and I'm confident valor will usher in brighter tomorrows. In closing, I'll share 2 beloved tales from the channel. You're bound to be intrigued.